In the dusty expanse of the Arizona Territory, where the sun scorched, the earth and the wind whispered secrets. Through the canyons lived a man named Harlan Crowe. He was a rugged rancher in his late 40s, with a face etched by years of hardship, a thick beard streaked with gray, and eyes that held the weight of loss. His wife had died 5 years earlier in childbirth, leaving him with a daughter named Ellie, a spirited girl of 10 with freckles across her nose and braids that swung like pendulums as she ran across the ranch. Harlan's spread was vast, hundreds of acres of cattle land, bordered by jagged mountains, but it felt empty without a woman's touch. Ellie needed more than a father's rough guidance. She craved stories at bedtime, lessons in sewing and cooking, the gentle hand of a mother to shape her into a young lady. Harlan watched her play alone with her dolls, her laughter echoing hollowly against the adobe walls of their home, and his heart ached. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, he sat on the porch with Ellie curled up beside him. "Pa, why don't I have a ma like the other girls?" she asked, her voice small. Harlan sighed, pulling her close. "Your ma's in heaven, darling, but I've been thinking. You need someone here, someone to teach you things I can't." That night he made up his mind. The next morning, Harlan saddled his horse and rode into the frontier town of Dust Creek, a ramshackle collection of saloons, general stores, and trading posts where outlaws and settlers mingled uneasily. Word had spread of a group of Apache captives being auctioned off by a band of opportunistic traders who had raided a nearby reservation under the guise of pacification. The Apaches, proud and resilient, had been displaced by the encroaching white settlements, their lands stolen, their people scattered. Harlan had no love for the violence that plagued the borderlands, but desperation clouded his judgment. He arrived at the auction yard, a fenced-in area behind the livery stable, where a crowd of rough men gathered, cigars clenched in their teeth, rifles slung over shoulders. The air smelled of sweat and horse manure. In the center, under a canopy of faded canvas tents, sat 3 Apache women on a wooden bench, their postures straight and defiant despite the chains loosely binding their ankles. They were sisters, Nayeli, the eldest at 25, with sharp features and eyes like polished obsidian, Talis, 23, softer in gaze but fierce in spirit, and Sani, the youngest at 21, with a quiet intensity that masked her inner fire. Their long black hair was braided intricately, adorned with eagle feathers that symbolized their heritage. They wore traditional outfits, tan leather pants fringed at the hems, tops beaded in vibrant geometric patterns of red, blue and white, revealing sun-kissed shoulders and midriffs. Armbands and necklaces of bone and turquoise completed their attire, a stark contrast to the drab dresses of the townswomen. Beside them stood a young Apache girl, perhaps 12, in a simple green dress, clutching a woven basket filled with herbs, likely a relative or ward, included in the lot. The trader, a greasy man named Silas Boone, banged a gavel on a barrel. "Lot number 7, 3 prime Apache squaws, strong and healthy. Good for labor, cooking, or whatever suits you. Starting bid $2 each," the crowd murmured, but bids came slow. These were not slaves. In the legal sense, the government frowned on it, but in the lawless West, such transactions happened in the shadows. Harlan stepped forward, his hat pulled low. He thought of Ellie alone at the ranch, and his resolve hardened. $6 for the lot," he called out, his voice steady. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It was a pittance, but in a town where money was tight, it sealed the deal. Boone grinned, slamming the gavel. "Sold to the rancher." Harlan approached the women, his boots kicking up dust. He pulled a few coins from his pocket, counting them carefully. $6, the price of desperation. The women looked up at him, their expressions calm but unyielding, hands resting on their laps, bodies poised as if ready to spring. Nayeli met his gaze directly, her lips pressed into a thin line. Talisa glanced sideways at her sisters, while Sani's eyes flicked to the young girl, who shifted nervously, hugging her basket tighter. Harlan crouched slightly, holding out the coins to Boone but addressing the women. "I ain't here to harm you," he said gruffly. "My daughter needs a mother. You'll be wives in name, helpers on the ranch. No chains, no cruelty." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. The young girl in the green dress stepped back, her braids swaying as Harlan untied the loose bindings. The sisters exchanged glances, a silent communication born of shared blood and suffering. They rose slowly, their fringed pants brushing the sandy ground, and followed him toward his wagon. The crowd dispersed, muttering about the oddity of it all, a white rancher buying Apache brides for pocket change. As they rode out of town, the wagon creaking under the weight of supplies and silence, Harlan glanced back. Ellie would be waiting, her face lighting up at the sight of new faces. But he wondered if this bargain would bring healing or ignite a fire he couldn't control. The mountains loomed ahead, guardians of secrets yet to unfold. Nayeli, seated rigidly, touched the feather in her hair, a reminder of her people's unbroken spirit. The journey home was long, the sun dipping low, casting shadows that danced like omens across the trail. Harlan drove the team steadily, his mind racing with plans. The women would share chores, teach Ellie their ways, perhaps even find a place in his heart. But as the ranch came into view, a sturdy cabin with corrals full of lowing cattle, the reality settled in. These were not mere purchases. They were women with histories, grudges, and strengths that could either mend his broken family or tear it apart. That first night, as stars blanketed the sky, Harlan showed them to a spare room, Ellie peeking curiously from behind his legs. "Welcome," he said awkwardly. But the sisters remained silent, their composed faces masking the storm within. Days turned to weeks, and the ranch began to change. Nayeli took charge of the garden, her hands coaxing life from the arid soil with Apache techniques unknown to Harlan. Talise mended clothes with intricate beadwork, turning plain fabrics into works of art, while Sani cared for the horses, whispering to them in her native tongue. Ellie followed them like a shadow, absorbing their stories of the stars and spirits, her laughter filling the air more genuinely. But tension simmered. The sisters spoke little to Harlan at first, their loyalty to each other fierce. One evening, as a thunderstorm rolled in, Nayeli confronted him by the fire. "You bought us like cattle," she said, her voice steady. "But we are not yours to own." Harlan nodded, stirring the coals. "I know, but Ellie needs you. And maybe I do too." It was the beginning of an uneasy alliance. As months passed, bonds formed subtly. Talise taught Ellie to weave baskets, their fingers intertwining in quiet companionship. Sani shared tales of Apache warriors, inspiring the girl to ride bareback across the fields. Harlan found himself drawn to Nayeli's wisdom, their conversations under the moonlight, revealing shared pains of loss. Yet whispers from town reached the ranch, rumors of Apache uprisings, of resentment toward whites who stole their women. Harlan fortified the fences, his rifle always close. One fateful day, riders appeared on the horizon, a band of Apache kin seeking their stolen sisters. The confrontation was inevitable, testing the fragile family Harlan had forged. In the heat of it, loyalties shifted, revealing depths of courage and love that no amount of money could buy. The riders crested the hill at dawn, their silhouettes stark against the rising sun, feathers fluttering in the breeze like war banners. There were 5 of them, Apache warriors painted for battle, rifles glinting in the early light. Harlan spotted them from the barn, his heart pounding as he grabbed his Winchester and rushed to the cabin. "Stay inside," he barked at Ellie, who clutched her doll tightly, eyes wide with fear. The sisters, Nayeli, Talise, and Sani, emerged from the house, their traditional outfits a bold statement amid the tension. They recognized the leader, a cousin named Kael, his face scarred from past skirmishes. "Sisters," Kael called in their language, dismounting with grace. "We've come to free you from this white man's cage." Nayeli stepped forward, her braids swaying, expression resolute. "We are not caged," she replied firmly. "This is our choice now." The words hung heavy, a bridge between worlds. Harlan stood beside her, rifle lowered but ready, understanding enough to grasp the gravity. The young girl from the auction, now integrated as little Mira, hid behind Talise, her green dress muddied from morning chores, basket forgotten on the porch. Kael's eyes narrowed, scanning the group. "He bought you for coins, like trinkets," Sani interjected, her voice rising. "And what would you have us do? Wander the wastelands, hunted?" "Here we have purpose." The standoff stretched, dust swirling as horses stamped impatiently. Harlan spoke up, his tone measured. "I ain't holding them against their will. They can leave if they want." But the sisters stayed put, their body language a united front, hands relaxed but alert, faces composed in quiet strength. Cale hesitated, then signaled his men to stand down. "If this is your path, we honor it, but remember your blood." As the warriors departed, vanishing into the canyons, a new chapter dawned on the ranch. The threat had forged unbreakable ties. Harlan and the women worked side by side with renewed vigor, the land yielding bountiful harvests under their combined efforts. Ellie flourished, learning Apache songs and dances, her spirit blending the best of both cultures. Naeli and Harlan's connection deepened. Stolen glances turned to shared sunsets, where he confessed his loneliness, and she spoke of her tribe's ancient wisdom. One crisp autumn day, as leaves turned gold, Harlan proposed properly, not as a buyer but as a partner. "Will you be my wives truly?" he asked, kneeling before them in the yard. Talise smiled softly. Sani nodded with fire in her eyes, and Nayeli placed a hand on his shoulder. "We already are." The ceremony was simple under the open sky, with Ellie scattering wildflowers and Mira holding a sacred feather. Life settled into a rhythm of harmony. The ranch prospered, cattle herds growing, neighbors marveling at the unconventional family. But challenges persisted. Winter brought blizzards, testing their resilience. Harlan fell ill once, and the sisters' herbal knowledge saved him, brewing teas from Mira's gathered plants. Spring raids from opportunistic bandits forced them to defend their home, the women proving as skilled with bows as Harlan with his gun. Through it all, love blossomed in unexpected ways, polygamous yet equitable, each sister finding her role, Nayeli as the wise matriarch, Talis the nurturing heart, Sani the adventurous soul. Heli called them all Ma, her world enriched beyond measure. Years passed and the family grew. Naeli bore a son, strong and curious, while Talise twins that filled the cabin with laughter. Sani chose not to have children, instead teaching the young ones survival skills, riding with them across the plains. Harlan aged gracefully, his beard fully white, but his eyes sparkled with contentment. The $6 bargain had evolved into a legacy of unity, defying the prejudices of the time. One evening, as the family gathered around the fire, Ellie, now a young woman, recounted the story to her siblings. "Pa bought our mass for $6, she said with a grin. "But their worth is priceless," the sisters laughed, their beaded tops catching the firelight, feathers still proud in their hair. Harlan squeezed Nayeli's hand, grateful for the twist of fate. In the end, the ranch stood as a beacon in the territory, a testament to redemption and blended worlds. Strangers passing through heard the tale and carried it far, inspiring others to question old hatreds. As the stars wheeled overhead, the family slept soundly, dreams woven from threads of resilience and affection. The Apache women, once captives, had become queens of their domain, their daughters and sons inheriting a future, free from chains. Harlan's desperate act had sparked a profound transformation, proving that from the ashes of loss, new families could rise, stronger, wiser and eternally bound.